USS is revealed only after the war. In the face of defeat, they secretly slipped 12,000 troops off Guadalcanal. Meanwhile, 600 miles to the south, to help counter the triumphant Japanese sweep through the South Pacific, a small Allied outpost in Vanuatu is frantically transformed into a vital strongpoint. This is Vanuatu, Santo Island, which was a huge staging point for the US. If you can imagine, at any one given time, there could have been up to 100,000 troops stationed on here, ready to spread out through the Pacific, particularly out to Guadalcanal. Lots of ships, lots of machinery, all here. 500,000 men passed through Santo, grateful for some R&R, and by crikey did they deserve it after fighting on the bloody battlegrounds throughout the Pacific. And amongst the luckiest men to reach the island are the thousands of troops aboard the President Coolidge. She was a converted ocean liner, and the ship was hit by a massive explosion at the entry to Santo Harbour after running the gauntlet of Japanese subs, planes and warships for thousands of miles. So the President Coolidge is probably one of the more famous wreck dives in the world. If you can imagine, it was carrying 5,000 troops, US Marines from America to Santo, to here, commonly known as the New Hebrides back then. And it took the wrong channel on the way in. Everything was going pretty rosy, really. And they came on in and they hit a friendly mine, if there's any such thing, because it actually sunk them. But you know what? As luck would have it, there was only 2 people that died out of 5,000. That's pretty good odds, it really is. And it's one heck of a dive. You can go into these huge, big penetrations, pitch black. Beautiful stuff. Gorgeous. Lots of fish life down there. And some big guns, really big guns. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to find some rifles as well. Apparently on the promenade deck, there's a few rifles still intact. Let's get them. The President Coolidge lies on her side on a sloping bottom from around about 100 feet to over 250 feet deep. And these portholes, they're actually skylights above what used to be the main lounge. Still, perfect, absolutely perfect condition. And take a look at this, the most famous artifact on the ship, the lovely lady with a unicorn, once the centerpiece of the games and smoking room. Still in great condition. And even further into the ship, another reminder of her days as a luxury liner. This is a mosaic-tiled fountain. And deeper, the relics of war, supplies that never reached the troops. And down in the infirmary, I find instruments and medicines to treat the wounded. It's like a living museum, exactly where it all happened almost 60 years ago. Heavy machine guns installed on the President Coolidge to defend the ship against air attack. Yet the only real threat came from their own side. And check out these heavy-duty naval guns, still aimed forward, firmly on the mounts that were fitted when the ship was converted from liner to troop ship. And here's the famous promenade deck where the last troops on board were ordered to dump their weapons and anything else that might weigh them down so they could jump overboard and swim to safety. The USS Tucker is another victim of its own side's defences. A destroyer ripped apart by a single explosion just outside the port. The USS Tucker is somewhere underneath me, and what happened was, as it was coming into port, it hit a friendly mine, blew it, almost broke its backbone. They tried to get it up on land, it didn't work. All right, let's go have a look. USS Tucker will be one of the most enduring underwater ghosts of war because her superstructure was built of stainless steel. And now, even more than half a century later, it's still intact. Have a look how shiny that stainless is. Anything that's not stainless is slowly but surely decaying away. The salt water just doesn't penetrate the stainless to a point where even the hinges work. Here's a place called $1 Million Point where the American forces dumped unbelievable amounts of machinery, spares and supplies when they shut down the Santo base at the end of the war. Everything like this forklift was bulldozed into the sea. An incredible underwater monument. There's stuff everywhere. It's November 1943, and the Allied Task Force assembles in the Central Pacific. 35,000 Marines, soldiers and sailors for the first ever amphibious landing. The Allies are moving in to take Japan's most easterly fortified base, the tiny island of Basio on the coral atoll of Tarawa. From the air, a tropical hideaway, but in World War II, Japanese Admiral Shibasaki says it's a fortress that will resist 1,000 men for 100 years. Both sides have no idea of what they're facing. Airstrikes follow the artillery, but the bombardment ends too early. The Japanese have time to regroup and defend the beaches solidly. But the landing is a disaster. The pounding has barely scratched the surface of the Japanese defences. The incoming Marines, they're getting cut to ribbons. Everything was against them. They were getting massacred on arrival, getting split apart by shells, our Western crooked. 2 years after Pearl Harbor, the Battle of Tarawa took place. Let me show you what happened. They had Red Beach 1, Red Beach 2, Red Beach 3. So the first wave came in here. They got pinned up against the wall, couldn't do too much. Red Beach 2 couldn't get too far. Really heavy casualties. The landing was a shocker. Hundreds of Marines die on the first day. Practically every Japanese soldier survived the bombardment. They were buried in deep, thick under the sand, and the surviving US Marines huddled against a Japanese defensive seawall, pinned down with nowhere to go. Most of the Amtrak's landing craft are trapped on shallow reefs. The Marines were in a world of trouble.
And imagine, I've just done a couple of 100 yards from the coral. I've made it to the beach. I'm underneath those 50 caliber machine guns, but I've got to make it to the wall. So I'm one of the lucky ones. One of the few, one of the percentage that made it to the wall. So now, we've got to try and take them out. How the heck are we going to do that? Stick your head up, woo, sniper takes you in the head. Not much you can do, except for these. Great. This is a US grenade. Pull the pin. Over we go. So I'm close, really close now. Straight in the slit. That was just the start. Amtraks. These Amtraks, there was only a few of them that made it up the beach, across the coral, and got to here. So here's two. The reason they call them Amtraks, you can see they've got the